Look at your hands the next time you start your swing. Watch what they do the moment the club moves back. If that club head jumps up off the grass and climbs into the air, you just found the reason your drives keep getting shorter every single year. I found it in mine, and once I saw it, I could not stop pulling the thread. Here is what I dug up, and it turned my whole game upside down. The greatest ball strikers who ever lived did not lift the club on the takeaway. They dragged it. Low, slow, close to the ground, like sweeping a coin off a table. That one move so small most people never notice it is the difference between a swing that lasts into your 80s and a swing that quits on you at 65. And somewhere along the way we were quietly taught to do the opposite. I trace this all the way back to a golf manual printed in 1905, written by a man who won 7 major championships with hands ruined by arthritis. What he wrote in that book was buried under 100 years of newer advice. So stay with me, because I am going to show you exactly what he did, and it costs you nothing, needs no new clubs, and works even if your back is stiff and your knees are shot and you play the same worn set you have owned for 20 years. I want to tell you when this started for me. It was a Tuesday morning, early, the dew still on the practice range behind the old municipal course near my house. I was 81 that spring. I hit a drive, and a fellow half my age, 2 mats down, hit his, and his ball flew a good 60 yards past mine with what looked like half the effort. I was swinging harder than I had in years. He looked like he was barely trying. That gap, that lazy, effortless power against my straining stuck in my head all the way home. I could not let it go, so I did what I always do when something does not add up. I started digging. The first thing I did was film myself. Just my phone, propped against my golf bag, recording my swing from the side. I had never done that before. I watched it that night at my kitchen table over and over, and something jumped out at me. The very first move I made, the takeaway, that first 1.5 feet of the backswing, my hand snatched the club straight up into the air. The club head left the ground almost immediately. My wrists hinged early, my arms lifted, and by the time I got to the top, I was all arms and no body. Then I found an old clip of that younger fellow's swing style online, and I slowed it down. His club head stayed low. It practically brushed the grass for the first stretch of the backswing. It looked like he was dragging the club away from the ball, not lifting it. Same with every professional I studied afterward. Low and slow, wide and lazy, the club stayed down. That was clue number 1. I lifted. They dragged. But why did I lift? Where did I learn that? Nobody ever sat me down and said, yank the club into the air. It was just how I did it, how almost everyone my age does it. And that bothered me more than anything. A bad habit so common that nobody questions it usually means somebody, somewhere, taught it on purpose. So I went looking for where the good habit went. I have a small shelf of old books, most of them handed down or picked up at estate sales over the years. Among them was a reprint of a golf instruction book from 1905 called The Complete Golfer, written by Harry Vardon. Now, if that name means nothing to you, let me put it plainly. Harry Vardon won the Open Championship 6 times and the U.S. Open once. 7 majors. And here is the part that stopped me cold when I read it that night. By the end of his career, his right hand was so crippled by arthritis and illness that he could barely close it. He could not grip hard even if he wanted to. And still he beat men half his age. How? I read every page looking for the answer. And there it was, described plain as day. Vardon wrote about taking the club back low and slow, keeping it close to the turf at the start, letting the whole body turn the club away rather than snatching it up with the hands and wrists. He called it a sweep. He warned against the quick, wristy pickup. He wrote that the beginning of the swing decided the end of it, that if you started wrong, nothing you did afterward could fix it. A man with a ruined hand figured out that dragging the club low took the strain off the wrists and let the big muscles of the back and shoulders do the work. Of course he did. He had no choice. His hands could not do it, so his body had to. And in being forced to swing that way, he stumbled onto the most efficient, most durable takeaway in the game. I sat there thinking, this is exactly what I need. My hands are not what they were. My wrists ache in the morning. If a low drag worked for a crippled champion in 1905, it would work for me in my kitchen chair at 81. But here is where the mystery deepened. Because if this was written down in 1905 in one of the most famous golf books ever printed, and it works so well, and it is so easy on old joints, then why in the world did nobody ever teach it to me? Why did I spend 50 years lifting the club into the air like everybody else at my club? Somewhere between Varden's day and mine, this simple truth got covered over, and I wanted to know who did the covering. That question sent me down the next hole in the trail, because the more old books I pulled off that shelf and out of the library, the more I realized this was not some secret one man kept to himself. It was everywhere in the old days. It was the standard. I found it again in a book from 1957, Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons. Hogan is the man a lot of people call the finest striker of a golf ball who ever lived, and he wrote about the takeaway with almost fussy precision. He described the club, the hands, the arms, and the shoulders all moving away from the ball together as one piece. Not the hands jumping first, not the wrists snapping up. Everything low and connected, turning back together. He drew pictures of it. He obsessed over that first move because he knew it set up everything else. Then I found a man named Ernest Jones, a golf teacher who lost a leg in the First World War. He had it amputated below the knee in 1916 and went on to teach golf from a stool, sometimes swinging on one leg to prove his point. He wrote a book called Swing the Clubhead. His whole philosophy was about a smooth, low, unhurried sweep powered by rhythm, not muscle. A one-legged man teaching effortless power. Do you see the pattern I was starting to see? Every one of these teachers who preached the low, dragging takeaway had a body that forced them to find the easy way, the crippled hand, the lost leg, the aging joints. They could not muscle the ball, so they learned the secret that lets you hit it far without muscling it at all. And that secret is the one thing modern golfers my age never hear. So let me stop and hand you the actual method right now, because I promised you value in every part of this, and I do not want you waiting until the end to get something you can use. Here is what dragging the club looks like, and how to feel it at home without even going to a course. Take your stance with a club, or even a broom handle if you are sitting inside. As you begin the backswing, imagine there is a second golf ball sitting about a foot directly behind your club head on the ground. Your job for that first stretch of the swing is to roll or push that imaginary ball straight back along the ground with your club head. Low. Along the grass. Do not lift over it, push it back. To do that, you cannot use your hands. Try it. If you use your hands, the club goes up and misses the second ball entirely. The only way to push that imaginary ball backward along the ground is to turn your shoulders and let your arms, hands, and club move away together as one connected unit. Your left shoulder, if you swing right-handed, turns under your chin. The club head stays low for that first foot and a half. Your wrists stay quiet and soft. The big muscles of your back and shoulder do the moving. That is the drag. That is the sweep Varden wrote about, the one-piece Hogan drew, the rhythm Ernest Jones taught from his stool. And the reason it gives you distance is simple physics, which I will get to. But first, feel it. Push the imaginary ball back low. Do it 10 times right now if you have anything club-shaped near you. Your body already knows this move, it just forgot it was allowed to use it. Now, that felt like a real clue clicking into place. I had the method, I had the history, but I still had not answered the question that was gnawing at me. If this is old, proven, easy on the joints, and free, who benefited from us forgetting it? Because things this useful do not just vanish by accident. Someone gains when you struggle. And that is where the trail got interesting. Let me tell you what changed in golf between Varden's time and ours, because this is the part that made me sit up straight. In the old days, a golfer had one set of clubs, often for life. The clubs were heavier. The shafts, going way back, were made of wood hickory. A hickory shaft is soft and whippy and slow. You physically could not snatch a hickory-shafted club up into the air quickly without the whole thing bending and twisting and throwing your shot off line. The equipment itself forced you to swing low and slow and smooth. The tool taught the technique. Then the equipment changed. Steel shafts came in and took over through the 1930s. Then lighter steel. Then graphite. Then clubs engineered to be swung faster and faster, marketed on one number above all others: speed, swing speed. Everything became about generating more clubhead speed. And the fastest way to feel like you are making speed is to yank the club up quickly with your hands and arms. It feels powerful. It feels fast. It sells clubs. But here is what nobody put on the advertisement. A fast, high, handsy takeaway wrecks your consistency and grinds down your body. It throws the club off plane in the first half second. It loads all the effort into your small muscles in your spine instead of your big turning muscles. For a strong 25-year-old, the body absorbs it. For you and me, it shows up as a sore back, a shorter turn, a slice that gets worse every year, and drives that fall 60 yards short of a man swinging half as hard. I started to see it. The lift was not a natural mistake. It was practically manufactured. New equipment sold on speed. New lessons built around that equipment. A whole industry that does better when you believe you need the newest, fastest, most expensive club to make up for the distance you keep losing. And the distance you keep losing is caused in large part by the very swing that all that fast equipment encourages. Round and round it goes. You buy the new driver. You get a little pop for a season. It fades. You buy the next one. Meanwhile, the free fix, the low-drag Varden described for nothing in 1905, sits forgotten on a shelf. I am not saying anyone sat in a room and plotted to make you swing badly. I am saying that when the easy, free, joint-saving method makes nobody any money, and the hard, expensive, body-wearing method sells a new $400 driver every 18 months, guess which one gets taught, advertised, and repeated until it feels like the only way. The truth did not get destroyed. It just got quietly buried under everything more profitable. And here's the thing about that low drag you just felt with your broom handle. It is one piece of a much bigger repair job, and I could not fit the rest of it into a video like this. So I sat down and wrote it all out properly. 3 books, everything I dug up about the tension that steals your yards off the tee, the grip that quietly robs you of distance, and the ball first contact that ends fat shots and that sting in your wrist from tight lies. Every drill in them is done on your carpet, your driveway, your garage, with the clubs you already own. No gym, no lessons, no new driver, and it is written for a man who still knows how to play, not for a beginner, and not for a patient. You will know where your ball sits, what your divot is telling you, how to warm up in 4 minutes at your car, and how to carry all of it into this weekend's round. If you want the whole method in your hands, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. The books are waiting. Now back to the trail, because feeling that clue click into place was not the end of it. That made me angry, honestly. But it also made me more determined to get the whole thing right and hand it to you clean. So let me go deeper into why the drag actually produces more distance, not less, because I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, if I swing slower and lower and softer, surely the ball goes shorter. That is the exact fear that keeps people lifting and lunging, and it is wrong, and I can prove it to you with the way the swing works. Distance does not come from how hard you yank the club back. It comes from width and sequence. Width means how far your club head travels on a big, sweeping arc. When you drag the club low and away, keeping your arms extended and the club head close to the ground, you create the widest possible arc your body can make. A wide arc is a longer runway. The club head has more distance to build up speed on the way down before it reaches the ball. A narrow, lifted, choppy takeaway does the opposite. It makes a small, tight arc, a short runway, and the club has no room to gather speed naturally. Then there is sequence. Real power in a golf swing comes from the ground up, in order your hips, then your torso, then your arms, then finally the club whipping through last. That is how you get that effortless snap the young fellow had. But you can only sequence properly if you take the club back connected, as one piece, with the big muscles. When your hands snatch the club up first, you break the sequence before the backswing even finishes. You have nothing left to unwind in order on the way down. You just throw the club at the ball with your arms and hope. So the drag does not cost you speed, it stores speed. It saves it up on a wide, connected arc and releases it in the right order at the bottom, where it counts. That is why a man with an arthritic hand or one leg could outdrive healthy men. They were not stronger, they were sequenced, and the low drag is the move that makes the sequence possible. Now, I want to talk directly to the person watching this who is thinking, that is fine for people who still play 18 holes and go to the range, but I am 83, my balance is not what it was, I do not have money for lessons, and I can barely get out to play once a month. Stay with me right here, because what I found next is built exactly for you, and it is the part that convinced me this was worth making into a whole video. You do not need a golf course to reclaim this. You do not need a lesson. You do not need to buy a single thing. This move can be practiced entirely inside your home, sitting or standing, with something you already own. Here is how. Find a broom, a cane, a yardstick, or even a rolled-up towel. Stand behind a chair and rest your hands on the back of it for balance. If you are unsteady, there is no shame in it, and it lets you focus on the arms and shoulders without worrying about your feet. Now hold your broom or stick the way you would hold a golf club, and practice one thing only, that first low move. Sweep the head of the broom back low and slow along the floor, turning your shoulders, keeping your hands quiet, feeling the whole thing move together. Watch the end of the broom stay near the floor. 10 times. That is the entire drill. Do it in the kitchen while the kettle boils. Do it in the living room during the commercials. 10 low sweeps, morning and evening. You are training your body to remember a move it was talked out of decades ago. And because it uses the big muscles and keeps the wrists soft, it does not hurt. In fact, several older golfers I read about in the forums described the low takeaway as the thing that let them keep playing after their doctors told them their backs were done. One man wrote that he had all but quit the game at 79 because of spinal pain, went back to a slow, low, one-piece sweep, and was still walking 9 holes at 84. No surgery. No new clubs. Just a change in the first foot and a half of his swing. If you rent, if you live in a small apartment, if you have no yard and no money and no one to play with, none of that matters for this. The whole fix lives in a movement you can rehearse between your couch and your coffee table. That is what made me trust it. The old methods were built for people who had nothing but their own bodies and needed things to work. This is one of them. And there is a bonus for the tight budget golfer that I have to mention, because it turns the whole money game on its head. Once your takeaway is low and connected, you stop needing the newest driver to find distance, because you are finally using the distance your current clubs already have. That man on the range who outdrove me was not using a better club than mine. He was using a better first move than mine, a free one. The most expensive problem in golf, chasing lost distance with new equipment, has a $0 solution, and it has had one since 1905. But even with all this in hand, I still had not reached the bottom of the thing. I had the method. I had the history. I had the reason it was buried. What I did not have yet was the single, clearest, simplest way to make my body do it automatically, without thinking, out on the course when it counted, because we all know a drill in the kitchen is one thing and a real shot with real nerves is another. And that last piece, the one that ties it all together, I did not find in the famous books at all. I found it somewhere I never expected. Let me tell you how I found it, because this is the part I have been building toward. I had gone through Varden, through Hogan, through Ernest Jones. Good history, good theory. But every one of them described what to do without giving me a foolproof feel that survived real pressure. So I kept digging, and I got hold of the writings of another old champion, Bobby Jones, the amateur who won the Grand Slam in 1930, winning 4 major championships in a single year, something no one had done before or has done in the same way since. Jones wrote a great deal about the golf swing later in his life, especially after illness took away his ability to play, and in one of his lessons he described the takeaway in a way that finally made the whole thing click for me. He wrote that the takeaway should feel as if the club head is being dragged back by a weight low to the ground, with the left arm and the club moving away in one lazy piece. And this is the part that changed everything for me, he described, starting the whole motion with a slight forward press and a feeling that the last thing to move is the club head so that it drags behind the hands rather than leading them. The club head trails, it lags low and behind like the tail of something being pulled, not lifted, not pushed, dragged from the body, with the head of the club the last and laziest thing to go. I took that one feeling, the club head dragging behind, the last thing to move, staying low out to the range the next morning. And I want to tell you honestly what happened, because I would not believe it either if someone just told me. My very first drive with that single thought went farther than any ball I had hit in 3 years. Not because I swung harder, I swung softer. It just came off the face like it had been fired, low and hot and long. I hit a whole bucket that way. Every good one had the same cause. The club dragged back low, the head trailing lazy and last, the body turning it away as one piece. That is the bottom of the mystery. That is the secret finale I traced all the way from a 1905 manual by a man with a ruined hand, through a legless teacher on a stool, through the finest ball striker of the 20th century, to a Grand Slam champion who put it in words I could finally feel. Do not lift the club. Do not even think about your hands. Feel the club head as the last, laziest thing to move, dragging low along the ground behind you while your shoulders turn it away. Let it trail. Let it lag. Keep it down. Here is the whole method, start to finish, so you have it clean. Set up to the ball or set up to nothing at all in your living room. Soften your grip until your hands feel almost lazy. Remember, Vardon's barely worked and he won 7 majors. Begin the backswing by turning your shoulders, not by moving your hands. Let the club head be the last thing to leave, so it drags low and close to the ground for the first foot and a half. Picture that second imaginary ball behind your club and push it straight back along the turf. Feel the width, arms extended, arc wide. Keep the wrists quiet until the turn naturally hinges them past your waist. That is it. The low drag, the one-piece sweep, the lazy trailing club head. Practice it 10 times a day with a broom, and by the time you get to a course, your body will do it on its own. It saves your back because the big muscles carry the load. It saves your money because you stop chasing distance with your wallet, and it gives you back the yards you thought your age had stolen, yards that were never gone, just locked behind a habit somebody talked you into. I keep coming back to one thought, and it is the thing I most want to leave you with. The distance you have been mourning, the easy power you watched younger players enjoy, the game you thought your body was too old to play, well, none of it was truly lost. It was written down over 100 years ago by men whose broken bodies forced them to find the gentle way, and it was quietly buried under everything newer and more expensive. You did not lose your swing. Somebody sold you a worse one, and now you have the old one back. You are the kind of person who does not just accept it when something stops making sense. You notice the gap. You wanted the real answer, not the one on the advertisement, and you followed it all the way to the bottom with me. That is a rare thing, and it is worth being proud of. So let me ask you something specific, and I truly want you to answer this one. The next time you take a club or a broom in your hands, try the drag, the low, lazy sweep with the club head trailing last, and then come back and tell me in the comments whether the ball, or even just the feeling, came out easier than before. And tell me this too. Had you ever heard before today that Harry Vardon won 7 majors with a hand crippled by arthritis? Leave a comment and let me know. And say where you are watching from. I love seeing how far this old, recovered knowledge travels. If you believe, like I do, that the best answers are usually the old ones that got buried on purpose, then come along with me. This is a growing group of people who would rather dig up the forgotten way than keep paying for the new one, and there is more to uncover. Because the next thread I am pulling is about something just as hidden, an old way of gripping a club, quietly used by the longest hitters of the hickory days, that takes pressure off arthritic hands and adds yards at the same time. and I found the first trace of it in a document even older than Varden's book. Stay with me, and I will show you exactly where it leads. Before you go, let me tell you one thing. This video showed you the idea, but inside my membership I take you through the full drag takeaway, drill by drill. And if something doesn't click, ask me your own question, and a real person, me or my team, answers you. You won't be alone either. You belong in the Wiser Living Circle. Just point your phone at the code, and you can cancel anytime. Now that your takeaway feels easier, let's fix the next piece. In the video starting right here, I'll show you a simpler way to start the club face, so your shots fly straighter with far less effort.